And good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And we have Patty Cakes from YouTube wishing a good morning and a grand rising to you too. Patty Cakes, thank you so much for the well wishes this morning. So, we're going to get right into it. I know yesterday we talked a little bit about a lot of things. And so I wanted to start the morning off with a video from Stephen A. Yes, we're going to start off the morning with talking about the government shutdown.
I just want to. There it is. I'm trying to be very respectful to everybody because they deserve it.
Why?
Let me say that. No, because you deserve it. But let me say this. I don't think Washington understands how ticked off we truly are. Think about the conversation that we're having right now. You brought up the single-payer system, emulating Canada. You know, we're looking at a president that just gave $20 billion to Argentina. We're hearing about or witnessing what I consider to be a retribution tour. And even though to some degree I don't blame him because of how people went after him, still it appears to be counterproductive. We're listening to this kind of stuff while a young man walked up to the microphone and said that he had to leave here to go and work on DoorDash to help pay for his daughter's tuition. Meanwhile, everybody up here getting paid. But he ain't. This is this kind of stuff right here. That's how you know, and I'm not accusing any of you directly or personally of feeling this way. I'm just talking about the apparatus that is Washington, the nation's capital. This is why you have so many Americans, excuse my language, so pissed off at Washington, because somehow, some way, you get to have these conversations, engage in specific elements of it to talk about what we need to do to get things better. Our debt is $37.8 trillion. Somehow, some way, the taxpayer's been paying this, been throwing money, because we all look at our check, and it's been going to the government. And somehow, some way, you're supposed to be doing something constructive and productive enough to make sure that we don't have that kind of deficit. It isn't happening. A government shutdown is going on right now. A man has to work on DoorDash when he's really an air traffic controller that we applauded. And we're up here talking about how much some money is going to cost. And the only person that don't have a check coming is him. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a break.
All right. Thank you for watching. Subscribe.
Yeah. Stephen A. said that. And it was well said. Well said. And that was actually, I want to say from almost 2 weeks ago that he said that. And the government shutdown is still going on. Meanwhile, everybody on that stage is getting paid. You see how one of those representatives, how he was kind of teeing and then his whole demeanor changed. He was like, oh, he's saying the quiet part out loud. Yeah, he is. Because it needs to be said, because while you are fine, your bills are going to be fine. Other people aren't going to be okay. And they're upset about it. They're upset about it. And then there are other people on the other side, well, just get a job. Well, some people literally can't because they are physically unable to work. There are some people that are permanently disabled who unfortunately do rely on food stamps, do rely on the government for their ability to survive. And in my opinion, it's cruel what the government is doing right now. Like at this juncture, it's just cruel. You're not helping anyone. You're still in the self-service business, and you guys need to start serving the people. That really needs to start turning around. So I want to share this video with you guys as well.
says it will not use emergency funds to pay for federal food benefits with a fast approaching deadline.
Somebody to fucking tell me they're lying. I need somebody to fucking tell me they're lying. I need somebody to fucking tell me they're lying.
If you think that you would not be affected by food stamps and SNAP benefits being shut off, you are very silly and misinformed, because we all will be affected by food stamps / SNAP benefits being cut off. People are going to feed their children and their families. Any means necessary. They will make sure that they are going to eat. I am from Philly, and we already have high crime rate in the city. The crime rate is going to double, if not triple, while SNAP benefits / food stamps are cut off. You think people are not going to feed their children? They're going to feed their children. They're going to feed their families. They're going to eat. People are going to be committing all types of crimes in order to feed their families and to get by. So we all will feel it. We all will be affected. We all will be having to look left and right and making sure, so I know any way that I can help, I am going to help. And I think that we all should do our due diligence and to help where and if we can. But the crime rate is going to be insane because people are going to eat. People are going to do what they have to do to survive. And when people are in survival mode, nothing good comes from that.
Imagine this. It's November 1st, and millions of American families open their fridge, only to find it echoing with emptiness. No milk for the kids' cereal, no bread for sandwiches, no hope on the horizon. That's the nightmare unfolding right now as SNAP benefits, those lifeline food stamps, are set to vanish amid a brutal government shutdown. If you're feeling that knot in your stomach, you're not alone.
I need to fucking tell me they're lying. I need somebody to fucking tell me they're lying. I need somebody to fucking tell me they're lying right fucking now, because what the fuck do you mean that I'm not gonna get my fucking SNAP benefits? What the fuck do you mean? Because what the fuck is happening? Do you understand that there are people like me who cannot work? Do you understand there are people like me who have kids who cannot eat? Do you understand there are people like me who go hungry the last week of the month just so my kids can't eat? Because SNAP benefits is all we fucking get? I need somebody to please fucking tell me he's lying. I can't. What the fuck am I gonna do? Oh, fuck.
I just met with somebody with the Department of Health and Human Services, and it is accurate, just like the memo said yesterday. There will be no food stamps for the month of November. December is also considered to be up in the air. On top of that, multiple DHA cases are being put together, and then hours are getting cut for our workers as well. So I don't know how Michiganders are supposed to prepare for something of this magnitude, but it is time to start doing so.
Americans are furious, and the anger is boiling over like never before. Picture a single mom in Ohio, juggling 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. She's relied on SNAP to put nutritious meals on the table for her little ones. But come November, poof, gone. No warning, no backup plan. She's not just worried, she's terrified. How am I supposed to feed my babies? She cries out on social media, her voice trembling with desperation. And she's one of 42 million people teetering on the edge. That's right.
New trend, guys. During the month of November, what we're now calling No Snap November, let me give you a backstory. The federal government is shut down, and therefore SNAP benefits is not going to be paying their recipients. They're not going to be paying them. So therefore, they're calling it No Snap November. So I'm creating a new trend. First of all, if you see somebody stealing, no, you didn't. If you see somebody stealing food because they're hungry or homeless, you didn't see that. Your vision is bad and your mind's playing tricks on you, okay? Number 2, but here's the new trend. If you see somebody that's dying of hunger and they have family members and they can't afford to pay for their food and they're resorting to stealing, pay for their meal. See, Jesus said, take all that you have, sell it, and give it all to the poor. If you have enough to pay for your way of lifestyle, and you have far more than you need, then you need to do the right thing by your people. Because what you do to the least of them, you do unto me, is what he said. So love your neighbor. And during No Snap November, during Thanksgiving, feed them. Feed them. It'll go a long way. And maybe you'll change the hearts and minds of a few people on the way.
Not getting SNAP benefits in the month of November is going to suck, and not for the reason that most of y'all are thinking about. I used to get food stamps, and the problem with having food stamps is that I had such a large amount of money at one time that I really never learned how to shop properly. So I would go to the store and fill my basket to the brim because I was excited. I could buy whatever I wanted to buy, and my house was full of groceries for about 3 weeks. A week before it was time to get food stamps, I was destitute. There was literally nothing in the refrigerator. Most of the families who get food stamps are low-income families, and they've never sat down with a financial professional or anybody to teach them how to budget. So they're budgeting for their groceries on their own, and a lot of them are doing it wrong. Now, introduce a government shutdown to a family who has had no food in their house over the past week and a half, who is ready for them stamps to hit on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th, and they are in trouble. Mind you, food banks are already overrun with people right now that don't even get food stamps. So now you add a ton of people that have been on government assistance for as long as they can remember, and those food banks are going to get overwhelmed and they're going to run out. I can only imagine what would be going through my mind right now if I was still in that situation, because this right here, this shit gonna hurt.
42 million souls, from bustling cities to quiet rural towns, facing hunger because Washington can't get its act together.
Let me just tell you, I had a job. In fact, I had 2 jobs. I had a corner office in downtown Cincinnati at a marketing firm that didn't pay me shit. And I worked my ass off, doubles, 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as a waitress on the river. But I also had 4 boys by myself. I did not have child support from my ex-husband. Would not be able to get child support from my ex-husband. I did not live in the projects. I did not live in government subsidized housing. I did not live on Section 8. I did not receive any other benefits other than food stamps. And let me tell you, I needed them. My boys, my money went to bills or field trips or shoes or coats in the winter. It's not like I was dressing them in, the top of the line. We did hand-me-downs like a skill set that should be taught in trade school.
Pay attention to all the men that are celebrating women and children not receiving EBT next month. Because I've been seeing it on all platforms, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere, TikTok, everywhere. I've been seeing it. And I just don't know what to say. I don't know. I saw a post yesterday, this man like, yeah, this is all I can afford, so now everybody else has to suffer too, because this is all the groceries that I can afford. Now all y'all got to suffer like I do. I just want y'all to know that majority of the people that get food stamps have jobs. They work. Contrary to popular belief, unemployed people have a difficult time getting food stamps. I'm not saying they don't have it. They have a difficult time getting it and maintaining it. They may get it for 1 or 2 months, but they are not giving out food stamps to unemployed people. They're just not. It has actually become more difficult to qualify for food stamps. People were used to getting hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and that's been cut in half. But I just want y'all to pay attention to the men that are celebrating women and children not eating.
The shutdown hit like a freight train, and now states are sounding the alarm. The USDA warned that funding runs dry after October, leaving November's benefits in limbo. No new loads on EBT cards, no groceries for families who count every penny. It's not just a policy glitch, it's a human crisis. Military families, already sacrificing so much, are lining up for food banks for hours, their kids' tummies rumbling. We served our country, and this is how they repay us? One veteran posted, his words dripping with betrayal. The lines wrap around buildings, running out of supplies by mid-morning. Heartbreaking, isn't it? And the rage? Oh, it's explosive. Across TikTok and Twitter, people are venting their fury. If they cut our food stamps, what's next? Our homes? One user rants, likes pouring in by the thousands. Rumors fly of protests turning chaotic, threats of looting in desperate neighborhoods. Turn the EBT back on or watch the streets burn, another warns, the frustration palpable. Even governors are slamming the Republicans for holding benefits hostage in political games. New York's leader called it outright shameful, echoing the cries of low-income families everywhere. But let's dig deeper. Why now? The One Big Beautiful Budget Act slashed billions from SNAP over the next decade, tightening work rules and eligibility. Able-bodied adults without kids, you're out, unless you're jumping through hoops. Immigrants? Even tougher. States with high error rates might foot part of the bill, squeezing programs further. Rural grocers are panicking too. Fewer SNAP dollars mean empty shelves and lost jobs. It's a domino effect, crushing communities one by one. Feel that surge of injustice? It's real. Kids going to school hungry, unable to focus. Elderly folks skipping meals to stretch their pensions. It's not just about food, it's about dignity, survival, the American promise crumbling under neglect. But amid the despair, there's a spark of resilience. Communities are rallying, food drives popping up, neighbors sharing what little they have. We won't let this break us, one activist declares, her determination inspiring. So what can you do? Stay informed, call your reps, demand action. Because if we don't fight back, who will? This shutdown isn't inevitable, it's a choice. And America, we're better than this. Let's turn the anger into change before it's too late. Hit that like button if this fires you up, subscribe for more hard-hitting truths, and share.
Yeah, it's pretty intense what's going on right now. And Sassy Lady, thank you for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. And Spud McKinsey says, "Good morning, UVN News. Hey, white folks, welcome to the party. Surprise. All right. Says these folks never cared unless black folks were receiving the short end of the stick, and now they can't fathom living life." Yeah. And also another post from Spud. He says, "I wish Trump right now in this exact moment was to declare $1 trillion to come, $1 trillion to some foreign country for foreign aid, and then the American people will finally wake up." Yeah, that's happening. I mean, some of the monies that were asked for from the Democrats, they were asking for money for Ukraine. I think they asked for like $5 billion for Ukraine to keep them funded. Just saying. And Dr. Z says, "What hype infomercial is this?" I know. It's a YouTuber that I found, and he had the compilation of just some different, recipients of SNAP and some not, right? And the initial Caucasian lady that was saying, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? This is the same lady, I think a couple months back, was talking, she makes, part of her money on TikTok as well, because she does have some followers. And I think she was talking about her car. She had like a car or something, and getting her children back and forth to school, and why she has the children she has, and she's on disability. What I mean, it's very interesting how people put their life out in the street, and then when things, repercussions happen, things are different. But to any avail, she is distraught because, like the other lady was saying, a lot of people don't budget these food stamps. And so by the 27th, which was Monday, so we'll just say by the 24th, a lot of people didn't have any more food stamps. Like the stamps were gone, right? Gone. So they're literally trying to float by this last week of October just to get to the 3rd of November. And they've been told there's nothing we can do for you. 42 million people. This isn't like it's happening to a million people. And even if it was, it's still concerning. 42 million people around the United States. And like the lady in Philadelphia was saying, she was like, people are going to eat. They're going to feed their children. They're not going to go hungry. And so, I started it off with Stephen A. And he's just like, the people up here on the stage are getting paid. You're not going to miss any meals. Nothing's going to happen to you. You have security. But these other individuals and some people cannot work that are receiving benefits. Some can. And one lady, as she said, she goes, that's the other downside. The one mom, with 4 boys, she's working, 2 or 3 jobs with her kids, trying to juggle all these things. And she still needed food stamps to just make the difference. What have we done? You're not doing any better as the government. And yet you're holding people hostage. Something's got to give. Either do your job or move out of the way. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of people, they keep sitting back with these smug attitudes in Congress like, whatever, they'll put us back in office. I'm telling you right now, people are not going to forget this. They're not going to forget this. They are going to make sure you don't get back into office. Because see, even though states could possibly partially float SNAP benefits, they really won't release them because they're not getting the backup federal funding to balance it out. Yeah. So I would definitely suggest food banks in the area. I'll be making sure to find some food bank posts that I have, from my area and other areas around the country, because this is serious. This is getting really real. And again, we have members of Congress, because right now you have to remember, this is in the Senate. It already passed through the House. It's not back at the House. It's in the Senate. And it needs, the way the bill is set up, they need so many votes of Democrats to pass a funding bill. And this is a funding bill. Even though they keep saying, oh, this is just on the Republicans. It's not in the Senate. They have to have a balanced vote in the Senate. It doesn't work the same way as it does in the House of Representatives. So yeah, it passed in the House. Barely, but it did. Okay. Because of the majority of Republicans have, it can't pass that way in the Senate. And they cannot use, somebody else was saying the other day, can they use the nuclear option? No, they can't. Because so many Democrats do have to agree with this because it's a funding bill and they know it. So Democrats, what are you doing? What are you doing? Y'all are wild. Y'all are wild. And like I said, it's going to say a lot when primary comes up. Yeah, because a lot of people, they're gonna be looking at you all sideways. They really, really are. So let's check out our next video. Now, this one has more so to do with people that are here that are undocumented getting Social Security benefits. And, when they get Social Security benefits, they typically will get food stamp benefits as well. So it's going to affect them too.
That you need to understand. I worked 24 years in the Border Patrol. I have Social Security. You're a working man. You're pouring into Social Security. You got truckers, 30 years, construction workers, nurses, stockbrokers, whatever. When I bring in my illegal alien grandma that's never worked a day in her life, you know that she gets the maximum Social Security benefit payout? What? So she'll get more money than me? For our grandmas and grandpas that are living paycheck to paycheck, illegal alien grandma from Sudan and Mexico, wherever, she gets more money than the person that's worked their whole life.
I mean, this is infuriating.
Illegal immigrants are getting Social Security benefits that hard-working Americans have paid into for decades. What if I told you that some of these people are even set up for lifelong disability while our Social Security system is running out of money? 365,000 illegal immigrants or more than that is receiving supplemental security income.
They wanted us to try to identify them in such a way that they would qualify for long-term Social Security disability. Now,
What?
Yeah. And long-term Social Security disability is for life.
Yeah.
So if they get identified and qualified for long-term Social Security disability, they are as good as set up for life for medical treatment.
That doesn't sound like a refugee to me. Just being honest.
Yeah.
That sounds like somebody who's planning on staying here.
Yeah,
A refugee
right.
stays until the problem's over and then goes home.
Well, that's right. And so they instructed us to try to identify, to try to get the client, because once they arrive here, they're now called clients.
They're called clients.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because clients pay.
Sure.
See?
Sure. I'm starting
And
to
so-
see where this is leading. here.
So they told us that we needed to talk to the client and ask them if they'd had any headaches, recurring headaches, or any lower back problems. Excuse me, anything that would qualify them for Social Security long-term disability.
Wait. So let me get this straight. Part of the screening is supposed to be, are you sick, maimed, injured, whatever?
Right.
No. Okay, good, you can come in.
Yeah.
You get on the airplane, are you sick, maimed, injured, whatever? Yes. Good, so we can give you disability.
Correct.
What?
Yes.
This is insanity.
Yes, it is insanity.
I mean, but in order to get Social Security disability benefits, don't you need a Social Security number?
Well, we were instructed in the meeting that one of the first things we were supposed to do was sign them up for Social Security. Yeah.
Wait. This is unbelievable. So they come over here and they get a Social Security number.
Right.
They become legal.
Correct.
Are you pulling my leg?
No, I'm not. And then after we processed them for a Social Security card, then we were to process them for a U.S. passport.
No, you're not.
So that's about the time I kind of decided, okay, I was done.
Now, this is a whistleblower, okay? And this happened under the previous administration, okay? So I think I remember, if you guys don't remember, but maybe a couple months back, I showed you a document from Social Security, and it had, let me say, paroled in the United States. And also had a list of other countries that people were able to receive Social Security benefits if they were from those certain regions, right? But it was paroled in the United States and one other term, which was very broad. So yeah, these people weren't stealing Social Security numbers. This whistleblower just stated they were told to process them with Social Security numbers. Now, is that a violation of immigration law? Because how are you just applying for Social Security and you're not even vetted to be a citizen here? Like, what? You're not even naturalized and you're applying for a Social Security card? Like, this is wild, but this is what's happened. And we're sitting here with a government shutdown, and this is some of the stuff that's led up to that. Okay. In the CR that the Democrats wanted, they want to go back to pandemic level spending. Pandemic level spending for health insurance. Why? Oh, that's right, because of this. You brought people over here who probably didn't qualify for Social Security disability benefits for life, by the way, that we're paying for. And these people didn't pay into the system at all. Like, when I tell you these people need to be found and put in prison, period. Period. And people were mad at Doge. You know, how dare you? You have all of our Social Security. No, they found the fraud. And you were afraid of it being found because you knew it was there. Just saying. Just saying. And Spud McKenzie says, wow, for life. Yeah. for life. And Cajun Lady says, "Good morning, my brothers and sisters," with her red, white, and blue hearts, and good morning for you. And Cajun Lady says, "I remember this story. Yeah, it was a big deal. But the reason why I'm bringing it up now is because I want to show how it's almost like the waterfall effect is just going down the line, right? Yeah. And Cajun Lady says the Democrat socialists, sorry, want to keep the money grift flowing. Absolutely. Because if it's not, then all of these people that came over here, what benefit is it to them? Right?
I've heard everything I want to know. I was so angry about this, that they would receive a U.S. passport. It just, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that we were giving these people Social Security cards and U.S. passports and free medical, free housing, free food, free everything.
Yeah, but the thing that bothers me, because the food we can recoup from, and the money irritates me, but we can earn it back and we can stop the program or whatever it is. But once you give somebody a Social Security number and you give them what's considered globally the golden ticket, which is a U.S. passport,
right?
That is beyond comprehension that we're doing this.
That's right.
Do bureaucrats know this is happening?
Well, interestingly enough, no, they don't. A lot of governors are unaware of how many refugees have come into their state, where they're located, under what conditions they've arrived, and I believe this is intentional. Now, we do know that the governor of Texas and the governor of Tennessee have both stopped this, and they're refusing to take any more refugees. In fact, the federal government has filed a lawsuit against both of those states because they're refusing to take any more refugees.
How dare you keep your people safe?
Right.
But, okay, so let's just say all the states are saying we want to pull out of this refugee resettlement program from the federal government, then they're fine, right? There's no other way the refugees are getting in?
Well, no. The state can assert that they no longer want to receive refugees, and then the federal government says, all right. And so then they start implementing a program called the Wilson Fish program. And Wilson Fish simply bypasses the sovereignty of that state. In other words, the state no longer processes the refugees. That means, in plain English, you no longer get to know how many are coming in, when they're coming in, where they're going, how much money is being spent on them, whether they're diseased or not diseased. You've lost all control over the entire situation, and as a sovereign state, you've relinquished that. And so Wilson Fish comes in then, and all of the federal monies that are set aside for this program bypass the state and go to third-party entities. And that would be something like Catholic Charities or Jewish Vocational Services. So it would bypass the state entirely, and they would take over the entire process of processing the refugees.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. And as a U.S. citizen and as a citizen of the sovereign state of Missouri, I am not in favor of that. I think we need to maintain our sovereignty just like we would in the United States. Honestly, we are first a citizen of the state of Missouri because we are a sovereign state. And then we're a citizen of the United States of America. But our first sovereignty and citizenship is to our state. And a lot of people don't realize that. So in order for us to maintain the health and welfare and the security of our borders, we must know who's coming and going.
Yeah, you have to.
Right.
You have to. And FUNU doesn't work for me.
FUNU doesn't work for me either.
And giving them a Social Security number.
Correct.
Have we been placed at risk? I mean, you mentioned that this is an invasion. Are we at risk?
I believe we are at risk, Josh, because when they come in, we're urged to compatriate them with fellow refugees, those who have come in before them. We are urged to locate other communities of refugees from the same country of origin, the same language, the same culture as those who are arriving. And so when they come in, and we have had Syrians come in, and we know Syrians are on the list of those 7 countries that have been banned. And so we've received Syrians here in Missouri.
Even after the ban?
Yes.
What?
Yes. And so these Syrians are coming in, and we know that they are coming from a country of origin that has malevolent intent toward us as a nation. And we now know they're not being vetted, and we now know that not only are they coming from a malevolent country, or a country that has malevolent intent, and we now know they're not vetted, we're giving them support, and we're giving them a passport.
What name do they put on the passport if their name on the thing is Funu?
I don't know.
That is sickening, but it's also frightening. That is some bull sugar honey iced tea, what this lady just mentioned. And this isn't just happening in her state of Missouri. This is happening across the country. And when a state stood up and said, nah, we're not doing this, they just usurped the state. And no wonder the Catholic charities are all up in arms about this, because this is their cash cow. They're making a ton of money off of this. They're making a mint off of this. So no wonder they're up in arms, about President Trump and the Doge and Elon Musk and those guys cutting off the spigot. How much money has been laundered, within their coffers? I'm sure the administrators, of the Catholic charities, they're all fairly wealthy at this point. I'm sure they've been lining their pockets. But this behavior, one, giving people that just got here who hadn't worked, who hadn't paid into the system, Social Security, when we're on the verge of the Social Security being defunct in about 10 years or so. And in some cases, I've heard that it could be shorter than that. We're being generous in saying 10 years. They're basically telling people my age and younger that, hey, this Social Security thing is probably not going to be around for you. I'm telling you, man, I am convinced that these Democrats, they want to destroy our country. And as JD mentioned last week to those over in Europe about their enemy being within, we got the same thing happening right here in our nation. We have the same thing happening right here in our nation. The enemy is within. No one from the outside has to attack us. We've let a lot of these people in here, and we have people in Congress that do not love this nation. We need to find the people that are responsible for this, and we need to do everything that we can to make sure that these people are out of office. They do not have the ability to do this right here ever again. This is disgusting, man. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section. Like, share.
Yeah. Now that is very horrifying. But like I said, I was playing that video because look at where we are right now. Now that was from the previous administration that was happening, because everybody was like, how are these people functioning? How are they getting cars? And how are they? Because they were given a Social Security number. They were given a passport. And some of them were given lifetime benefits. Far more than the average person that applies for Social Security that's an American citizen. They were giving them the max. And I think the max is like $2,500 or something like that a month. And in certain states, you can live off of that. You can buy a house with that. Okay? And I'm not putting this off all on Democrats. Both parties allowed this to happen, because nobody really stood up and stopped it. Just saying. And Cajun Lady says, John Thune is a rhino, 100%. Okay. And that's Republican in name only. And Cajun Lady also says, this is their goal, to destroy us from within. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because how else is this getting done? See, people forget about that Appropriations Act of 2021, and I keep shouting about it. They put $500 million aside for this. That was just to traffic these people in here. That's outside of giving them the benefits that they've done. Now, if we look at other countries like Germany and the UK and Switzerland and the Netherlands, they've gone through the same process as well before us of bringing people in from a foreign land and giving them benefits and housing. And where their countries are now, they're devastated. And they want to do the same thing here. I'm not here to fearmonger. I'm just here to point it out. Because, see, at the end of the day, there are going to be some people that are going to suffer. We're going to have winners and losers, right? But these people that just came over here that hate our country, by the way, because you said that there are some incendiary individuals that do not like the United States, but you're going to bring them here. So you're going to bring people here that hate us and call them refugees, wow. That's on the Republicans and the Democrats because nobody stopped it. No one stopped this. And Uncle Coolwater says refugee status. When someone is admitted to the U.S. as a refugee, they arrive as a legal permanent resident, green card holder, right? After 1 year, they are eligible to apply for U.S. citizenship. The system is designed for them to integrate and stay permanently. It is. And see, some of these individuals that were saying they were refugees or asylum seekers. The reason why some of them that are going to court now, because it's supposed to be like 10 years before they went to court, which obviously, if you keep your nose clean for 5 years in this country, you can actually apply for legal citizenship. And they're just at that number right now. Those people, because their refugee status wasn't legitimate. So let's use the South Africans, for example. The South Africans, they were actually deemed refugees. Even the Somalians that are in Minnesota right now, they were deemed refugees by the United States. They were given that status. So if you're given that status, when you come through the proper port of entry as a refugee, that's where you get the green card. But see, we had people coming up through all illegal ways saying, I'm an asylum seeker, I'm a refugee, and they weren't. So those are the people that are getting deported, right? Because they thought whoever was over this within our own federal government, because they were giving them money and they were, the Catholic charities are getting money and everybody's getting paid. The NGOs got paid, right? There was $12 billion set aside for unaccompanied minor aliens. Again, another human trafficking scheme done by our federal government in the Appropriations Act. So you could pass the Appropriations Act for 2021. And some of those programs are still in place till 2026. But you know that the money is going to run out under this new billing process that we've put forward, this new budget. You're not going to get that honeypot anymore. And you want to go back to that? Oh, that's right. Because you brought a new class of people over here that you have to support. That actually we have to support as the American taxpayer. See, the tab keeps going up, but you're not doing a good job. We should not be at a $37.8 trillion deficit right now. But we are because the bad decisions made by Congress. The blame is nowhere else but at your feet, House and Senate. It lies with you. The president does not have the ability to put budgets in place. He can't. It's not his job. Now, he can veto or he can approve. Like, that's it. Everything else falls on you. See, it's really interesting how when they want to be at the top of the food chain, the legislature, well, we're in charge of the purse. It's us. Remember all that? Remember all that puffed up talk? When all these agencies got closed down, like USAID, and people standing outside like, oh my gosh, how dare you? First of all, it was an executive order. It should have never been made a designated department. It was a complete slush fund with our tax dollars, and nothing got done except degeneracy. And we're in debt for it, by the way. Yeah, by the way, that's part of our debt. But you want us to trust you. Sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know about you guys, but I'm like, I'm out. I'm tapping. These people have to go. And they know it. I think they're well aware that it's past their time. But they want us to trust them. Yeah, right. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm gonna show a video. It's for me, this particular video that I'm gonna show you guys is disheartening because it pulls on the heartstrings, right? And I really want to know what you guys think about it, but Now let's take a quick break and we'll see you on the other side.
The browsers of today are broken. They've been overtaken by a barrage of sneaky and annoying ads, trackers that follow your habits, and cookies that build profiles, and all sorts of other internet clutter that's taking precedence over the content that you want to see. In fact, these useless bites can take up to a whopping 50% of page load times, with a third of it anxiously trying to learn more about you. To make matters worse, some ad blockers are even letting ads through when large advertisers pay them. But do you really want a leaky ad blocker? It's because of these very reasons that we developed Brave, a new browser that kicks internet crud to the curb and makes it faster, safer, and better to surf the web than your current browser. With Brave, everything you need is built right in. We integrated technology that automatically blocks trackers, annoying ads, and shields everything that can cramp your style and destruct your privacy. With it, you can expect increased speeds nearly 2 times faster on laptops and up to 4 times faster on mobile. And unlike any other browser, Brave allows you to support your favorite publishers with automatic micropayments, so it's a win-win for you and your favorite sites. To top it all off, Brave is open source, because we truly believe it's our web and we need to fix it together. So ask yourself this question. Do you want a web browser made for the internet of today? If so, try Brave. It's faster, safer, and ad-free.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And we got a question right before the break. And Patty Cake's son is asking, why are the old folks blaming Trump for this shutdown? My son asked. Well, they are messaging that because, unfortunately, not everybody's following this as closely as they may want to. And they do rely on people like myself and other newscasters to put out good information. And that's actually a great question. They're blaming Donald Trump because the one big beautiful bill that was put in place actually is tightening up a lot of the measures, right? So a lot of people that are in our country and they're undocumented or they're here illegally, they will not be able to receive any of these benefits. Okay, so that's one. Number two, people that are receiving benefits that are able-bodied, they're going to help get them back to work so they are no longer dependent on benefits. People are upset about that as well. Okay, so those are just two things in the one big beautiful bill that, I wanted to point out. Nobody really wants to dive into the bill, but maybe we will have to after, a little while, maybe this week. Hopefully the government becomes open before Friday. But a lot of people are blaming the president because he's an easy target to blame because a lot of people really don't know how our government works. Okay. So in the process of this budget being passed, right? Which is their annual fiscal budget. So you'll see fiscal year FY 2026 going into 2026, they have to fund certain programs going forward, right? One of the funds that the Democrats are fighting for is the ACA, which is the Affordable Care Act. Now, the Republicans said, please don't make this a part of the budget. It should be kept separate, which I agree with, because it should be its own separate line item of funding. Because if it gets caught up in this CR, they're going to be able to inflate and increase a lot of monies in an inappropriate way. And the people that are going to be held responsible are going to be taxpayers. Okay. So let's just start from the beginning. The House, they packaged together the bill, right? They passed the bill. It's now with the Senate. Now, in order for it to pass in the Senate, you have to have a 60-member vote of Republicans and Democrats. Okay? It takes both. And because it's a funding bill, it has to be passed that way. It hasn't gotten to the president's desk yet, so there's really nothing he can do. And people keep saying, well, he needs to sit down with them and talk with them. There's nothing he can do. Hello. The Senate needs to do their job, and they're not doing their job, and they're blaming one another because they know they can, because they know that the typical American person who's a part of the masses doesn't understand civics, which is why they no longer teach it in school. So I would definitely suggest, go online, learn and learn about civics. There's great videos out there on YouTube. You can actually use ChatGPT to learn about civics 101. And we're going to have to independently know how our government works. They're playing chicken right now with our lives, and it's disgusting. And they're using foreign individuals that aren't citizens here to destroy our country. I'm telling you, they all need to be removed from office. So I hope, in short, that helped to answer your question. It's just they're blaming the president because he's an easy target. And a lot of people just don't understand how civics works. And Spud McKenzie says there are too many Harvard studies, Department of Labor reports, and even bipartisan U.S. commissions like the Barbara Jordan Commission proving how mass immigration has economically harmed the Black community. Oh, yeah. It was definitely designed to harm us, but now that it's harming everybody else, now they're crying foul. They're like, oh my gosh, you can't believe this. It is what it is. But there's a way out of this. There is truly, truly a way out of this. I will not accept defeat. Not ever. We're better than this. We truly, truly are better than this. Now, before I get into my next video, it's more going to be about health. I wanted to share this video with you guys since this is Tell It All Tuesday.
Major misunderstanding that's gone viral on social media.
On Sunday, Pastor Marvin Winans hosted a day of giving. Members of Perfecting Church were asked to donate $1,000 and raise another $1,000 to help finish the new sanctuary in Detroit and support their community programs. Pastor Winans asked those giving $2,000 or more to come to the front of the church first, with others following, from the largest donors to those donating as little as $1.62. But one member, Roberta McCoy, went viral after someone posted video of her coming to the front with less than $2,000, claiming she was rebuked by Pastor Winans. I spoke exclusively with both Pastor Winans and Roberta McCoy, who says she's been attacked online since that video began spreading.
You're the woman in that viral video.
Right.
He did not rebuke you.
He absolutely did not rebuke me. Now, there's a difference. There was a correction because let me clearly state that Pastor gave instruction on the lines to get into.
I was calling because the whole church was giving, and it was our day of giving, and the whole church was coming, and we didn't want people standing, the mothers and all that, so I was calling them by increments. And we had someone that had given out of before, and I corrected it, and I told everybody to listen and come when you call, and that's all that was.
Roberta told me Pastor Winans personally apologized to her. She's been a member of Perfecting Church since 2013 and has given faithfully over the years and will continue to do so.
Yeah. So I don't know if any of you came across that video where he basically was like, I said this instruction, people that had 2,000 or more, you're supposed to come up now, and then people with less, I need you to listen. But it was the way he did it. Okay. And a lot of times people don't see themselves when they do things, and they're just doing things. And it's really sad how the Black church, and in my opinion, has just really become gross. Gross. Because you're doing all this money for a sanctuary. not a job program for people who need jobs. No, because we're talking about Detroit now. Okay. So no job programs, no educational programs, nothing to really help the community. This is all for a building. And I'm not against churches raising money for a building, but it always seems like Black churches are raising money for something, but the communities around them are suffering. I mean, anybody? I mean, you guys can give me your feedback because that's what I see. And it's really sad. I'm glad that um it was cleared up, but it's still, in my opinion, unexcusable right now. We've got people that can barely pay their rent. And, they're giving over $2,000 of their hard-earned money towards a church who's not helping them at all. It's really, it's crazy to me because you can't clean up this pastor. Wrong line or right line. All you had to do is say, well done to that lady. Very true. Very true. In her humbleness, she was like, no, I was wrong. And I was like, we totally teach codependency in the church. I'm not even going to say in the Black church because it's in all churches. It is. We teach people how to be complete codependents and enablers, by the way, which is why a lot of nonsense happens in our churches, Black or white or Latino, whatever. Sad. Nobody's really taught how to truly follow God. They're taught how to follow man, but not God. That's the sad part. I really hope we get past that part. So, in moving on and forward, let's see. I'm trying to make all this flow together because I've given so much information. I'm like, I know yesterday, some people asked about RICO and insurance, and we went over it. And so I want to transition to that before I get into our last segment. And Spud says, last song on Justin Bieber's new CD, number 21, disc 2, the song Forgiveness. Where does that money go? Right. Exactly, because he's part of a congregation as well. It's hard to tell. I don't know. Let me share this with you guys. So yesterday, my first day back, I've been doing a little vacationing, and we talked about, before I get into it, but he said last song, Justin Bieber's new album, number 21, Forgiveness. Oh, it is Marvin Winans. Okay, where does that money go? Yeah, it doesn't go to his church because he's asking people for thousands of dollars to help build the church in the community. Why aren't we using that money to help people maybe get a down payment on a condo or house in Detroit? Why aren't we doing that? So people aren't homeless and on the street. Just saying. Like, I'm just saying. The Black church is notorious for raising money. And then these other mega churches, notorious for raising money. And they don't pay people within the congregation because some of those positions are voluntary. So certain people don't pay. You're not putting this money back into the community. Again, like Spud was saying, where's the money? Where is it going? Yeah. And Sincerely Lawless, thank you so much for joining us on the stream this morning and reposting the stream. So again, we're going to just go over this RICO and NBA scandal that's going on. And I had some other follow-up questions to ask because we wanted to know a little bit about insurance, insurance body parts and how that works. So I said, can you go over the RICO and insurance body parts in the NBA and NFL? Also, can you explain the business of sports teams and the organized crime families involved in the latest FBI sting? So we're doing it in 3 parts, right? The racketeering, the insurance bodies, and the business of sports teams. So, we're outlining RICO and just letting you guys know what it is. Was passed in the 1970. It allows the U.S. government to charge an individual or entity for participating in a pattern of racketeering activity connected to an enterprise. Racketeering activity includes a long list of predicate offenses: fraud, money laundering, bribery, extortion, etc. If someone is convicted under RICO, they can face criminal penalties and forfeiture of ill-gotten gains and their interest in enterprises used in the wrongdoing. Although RICO was originally intended to go after traditional organized crime, the mafia, that was its original intent with the RICO. Its use has broadened to include white-collar crime, insurance fraud, and healthcare fraud, etc. So how it can be applied in sports insurance context. So insurance healthcare fraud, for example, NBA insurance fraud cases below show how athletes, providers falsely submitted bills to obtain payments they weren't entitled to. That kind of scheme could be charged under RICO if it constitutes a pattern of racketeering activity tied to an enterprise. Okay. Organized crime in sports and gambling. Sports and gaming. Sorry. Federal Bureau of Investigation lists crime and corruption in sports and gaming as an active priority, including illegal betting, manipulation of athletes' games, and infiltration of sports by organized crime. It's always, how can crime be organized? It's like, what? Like crime has a job here. Okay. But it's crime. And we're not getting rid of the organized crime. It's just organized. Like, I don't understand. Like, it shouldn't exist. Like this, if anything needs to be obliterated, can we obliterate that? Can everybody agree that we should obliterate organized crime? What? I know they have to have a name for it, right? When it's a well-oiled machine. Okay. I would say we have organized crime in our Congress. Yeah, they do. It's called, what is it? Insider trading. Oh, yeah. By our own congressmen and women. They should never be allowed to participate in the stock market while serving as members of Congress because they actually write the bills that benefit these businesses that they are able to gain from. That's organized crime. What are we talking about? But none of them are going to jail. And they do it with impunity, by the way. Yeah. So when they use that term organized crime, it touches a spot with me that I'm not really happy about. So insurance health welfare plans in athletes are lucrative targets when there's a captive or quasi-captive enterprise, e.g. a player's health plan, okay? And there are false claims, kickbacks, collusion, etc. Prosecutors can charge conspiracies included under RICO. So in short, RICO is a tool that can be used for sports insurance fraud and for other organized criminal infiltration of sports. Now, I know yesterday when I was talking, we were talking about like who can insure body parts and why and this, that, and the other. And I was saying, it's like, yeah, players can, get insurance, but I don't know if they can actually insure the parts of their body like a singer can, right? And so we're going to get into it. Insurance body parts, athlete insurance, and fraud in the NBA, NFL. What is meant by insurance body parts? So isn't a formal term, but in sports, one sees teams, athletes buying insurance policies on large contracts, injury risk, or specified body parts. A pitcher's insuring his arm, right? Insurers impose exclusion or uninsurable body parts if prior injury risk is high. One antidote on Reddit discussed how some insurers had magic bullets to designate a body part uninsurable for a given player. Fraudulent schemes where medical health benefit plans in pro sports are defrauded by false claims for injury or treatment of body parts that never were actually treated, right? So somebody's saying, okay, my elbow's messed up, but their elbow's not really messed up, but they know they can get so many thousands of dollars if that claim is made. Just using that as an example. So documented cases in the NBA and relative to sports broadly in 2021, later 18 former NBA players were charged with defrauding the NBA's health and welfare benefit plan for former players and families of millions of dollars by submitting bogus medical dental claims. Wow. And sorry. Spud says, organized crime, well-oiled machine, the system. Where are the mugshots of the mafia figures, or are the black athletes the face of league corruption and degenerate gamblers? Oh, you know it's us. You know they making us the face of this. They mention the families. They're not showing any pictures of these people. That's not what it's meant to do. It's meant to make people question the system. Right? And who makes up, like, what, 80% of the league's players? Just with the NBA and the NFL. Yeah. They're doing this on purpose. Please. We will never see these other crime families on camera. And if we do, okay. Got lucky, man. Just saying. In 2023-24, former NBA players Glenn Big Boy Davis and Will Bynum pled guilty, convicted in such a scheme. Davis was sentenced to 40 months. Wow. So not much published in mainstream sources about NFL body part insurance fraud, but the same principles apply: injury risk, insured contracts, benefits, exclusions. But there are credible sources on sports players being targeted by organized theft groups, right? So why teams, players use insurance and how it works. In brief, a major contract for a player is a huge investment by a team. If the player suffers a career-ending or long-term injury, insurance can offset the financial risk. So like I was saying yesterday, the teams more than likely insure the players as opposed to the players getting to insure themselves, right? So again, somebody breaks their ankle, they're not be able to come back for the season. They could file a claim against that player. It wouldn't affect the player's payment in their contract, but the team themselves wouldn't lose on any monies, and they can be like, we might lose in ticket sales because that was one of our star players, or you know what I mean? So that's how it would work. So some policies may exclude certain body parts, previous knee or shoulder, or have higher premiums. Teams pay premiums, sometimes jointly with players, and conditions, games missed, specific injury definitions apply. So insurers analyze risk, prior injuries, age, position, etc. If the risk is high, insurers may demand exclusion of certain parts or decline coverage. Yeah, because these people are a product. That's what they are. They're a product at the end of the day. And if the product can't function properly, then they're going to mess up my overall bottom line. So watch out for fraud risk, false claims for treatment of body parts that weren't injured or treated, schemes involving medical providers creating false invoices, players or ex-players using the plans when they're not eligible or faking treatment. In a wider context, teams, insurers, and leagues need to ensure integrity of the process, diagnosis, treatment, claim submission to prevent abuse. And I mean, it's hard and difficult to do that. You just saw, like, what, last year, somebody had to go to court and serve time. So the business of sports teams and organized crime involvement, how it works. Professional sports teams are multi-billion-dollar business revenue from broadcast right ticket sales, sponsorships, merchandise, stadium deals, local advertising, etc. Owners often view teams as investments, right? Teams may have complex corporate structures, and because of the scale and complexity, there are risk points, money laundering, illegal gambling, insider information, corruption, kickbacks, stadium construction, financing, etc. Right? It's crazy. So organized crime links. The FBI's crime and corruption and sport and gaming webpage notes it targets manipulation of sports, illegal betting, infiltration in sports enterprises by criminal organizations. In the U.S., the Lushi family, a known mafia family, was charged in 2022 with operating a large-scale illegal gambling business, Rhino Sports, involving tens of millions of dollars. That this shows how organized crime leverages sports gambling, right? And according to reporting, former NBA star coach player Chauncey Billups and former player Damon Jones have been alleged to be involved in an illegal poker scheme tied to the Gambino and Lushi families, where athletes' face cards were used to attract wealthy bettors. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. And the FBI issued a warning about professional athletes, NBA and NFL, being targeted by organized crime groups for burglaries, theft of valuables, tracking of their schedule via social media. Wow. Yeah. So a lot of times, players leave the road. Their house is vulnerable, and they would get their houses broken into. So sad. But what if they were working together? I'm just saying. And somebody knew that their house was worth, so many millions of dollars, and they got the policy and their house got broken into. See, they'll get their money back. But the person that lifted the jewelries and stuff, are they working together to do that? I'm just saying, that's one angle of crime. Look, if we're going to go there, let's go there. And why it matters to sports team: integrity, financial risk, reputational risk, right? Regulatory, legal risk. So in summary, what we know versus what is less certain. RICO is being used in sports insurance contexts. There has been documented insurance fraud by former players, organized crime families, right, that are still walking the planet free, by the way. I don't know how you're an organized crime family and you're walking the planet, but that's what we're doing. The FBI has warned that professional athletes' homes are being targeted by organized theft rings. Yeah, they are being targeted, but at the same time, I think they're probably working together. So I haven't heard anybody on the air going, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe my house got broken into." Blah blah blah. I'm like, y'all are splitting this on the back end, and they'll find out, and we'll all find out about it one day. I'm just saying. So there's Chauncey Billups and Damon Jones. And unfortunately, their lives ruined, but we haven't seen the Lushi family, right? Luches, maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong, but and this was in January. Crime members associated pled guilty in a $25 million illegal gambling operation. And I think that might have been part of what Chauncey was a part of, right? They're just going after everybody. I'm like, okay, got it. And so it says you can dig deeper, give me a timeline of RICO organized crime cases in the U.S. But I also wanted to ask about stadium ownership, how it works, and what effects it has on taxing citizens, because that's a big part of this as well. So we went into this, and this is something that I'll share with a small group of individuals. And if you want a copy of this, just email me at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. That's unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. So it goes over, how insurance works and examples, insuring a body part list examples such as Ronaldo insuring his legs for $144 million, and Messi insuring his legs for $889 million. And that's just in soccer. Okay. Yeah. Soccer. So for athletes in the US, it's less common to publicly see this leg is insured for X, especially in the big leagues like NFL and NBA. But the principle is real. Coverage is for the risk of a particular body part or ability to perform, right? And so that's what I was talking about before. It affects everything when these players aren't able to play. Oh, Lucasy. Okay. Thanks, bud. I was having a problem with the Lucchese family. And Spud was just letting me know that's how it's pronounced. Thank you, because I was just like, huh? Is it a CH? We got a hard K. Just interesting. I wanted to get down to stadium ownership. Here we go. So how stadium ownership financing typically works. So a stadium whose permanent tenant is a professional sports team are often built, owned, or supported via public-private ownership, which means they work with the city and a private owner like Staples, for example. They work together. Or ownership may be a city, county, public authority, or the team owner directly. Okay. Now, not all stadiums are owned by team owners. A lot of them are the private public. And the financing mechanisms, municipal tax exempt bonds, tax increment financing, districts, hotel tourist taxes, food and beverage taxes, parking ticket surcharges, and sometimes direct public appropriations. For example, the statute indicates that in Texas, for pro athletes, there is a choice between workers' comp versus contractual benefits for certain injuries. Oh, we're still talking about this. That's more about athlete risk than stadiums. Well, yeah. And Tatas, thank you so much for reposting the stream. So I really wanted to look at the taxpayer impact of the stadium. So many economists and policy analysts argue that publicly financed stadiums often do not deliver the promised economic benefits, job growth to taxpayers. For example, tourist taxes are not a free good to local residents, right? When you raise hotel rental taxes, you may discourage visitors or shift the burden, right? So if they don't fill up the hotel, they'll raise the taxes on the individuals within the city. And I think that probably happened a lot in Niagara Falls because that city is falling apart. It's really sad. So the use of tax-exempt municipal bonds for stadium financing can shift burden to taxpayers and reduce federal tax revenue because interest is exempt and revenue that might have gone elsewhere is diverted. Public authorities may own the stadium, thereby exempting it from property tax. For example, meaning local governments lose property tax revenue. Some newer stadiums attempt to pay property tax to avoid that issue. Yeah. So they're not paying like local business taxes, right? But they might also not pay the property taxes on that property. So it all comes back down to the taxpayer, which is sad. So a stadium might be fully privately funded, right? And privately owned by team owner, less burden on the taxpayers. Example, Chase Center in San Francisco is 100% private funding per one table. Or the stadium might be publicly owned via city, county, or public authority, and the team leases it, right? Often long term. In that case, the public may assume construction debt, maintenance costs, and opportunity costs. Sometimes hybrid private investment, plus public subsidies, incentives. But it's like, I just don't see the benefit when, how should I say it, when the team is given such a discount. I'll just put it that way. And they're not paying the taxes. It's almost like, then what's the benefit to the public having you there? That's all I'm saying. So, one recent example in Detroit, the soccer club, Detroit City, plans a privately owned stadium that will pay property taxes, distinguishing it from other pro venues in Detroit that are tax exempt. So, another in DC, the Washington Commanders' new stadium deal for the RFK site involves $1 billion in public infrastructure and fees, plus $2.7 billion from the team. So that's that public-private partnership. Kansas City, the Kansas City Chiefs are planning $800 million for renovating Arrowhead Stadium with tax extension voted by the residents. So again, in those situations, the taxpayers are actually benefiting, right? Jobs, right? And their taxes aren't being raised out of the roof where they can't afford to live there. But like I said, it's definitely a balancing act. It says given my interests, long-term solutions, understanding how stadiums structured gives you insight for local government, community development, tax policy, social equity. If a community is asked to provide public subsidy for a stadium, you'll have a solid background to assess risk, benefits, and stakeholder trade-offs. Now, this RICO organized gambling crime in sports, I'm not going to go over or burden it anymore. But the documented cases around gambling rings, sports business environments contain risk factors, gambling, insurance, big money. Though team ownership, RICO indictments are less frequent publicly. Yeah. So nobody really knows about a lot of this stuff until it really goes down, in essence. That's the takeaway, right? So thank you guys for going through that segment with me, just about RICO and what's happening, in other areas, right? Because they even said, there's been insurance fraud, with body parts. Stadium financing, that plays a big part into it. Who are the actual investors? Who are the silent investors in a lot of this? And what's really happening with this gambling, they've opened Pandora's box. So now we're going to have to go through and see just what else happens with all of this. And Spud says there's no benefit in Miami Gardens. They have Hard Rock Stadium in a permanently Black populated and Black ran city, and the community does not benefit at all, and just gridlock traffic. Wow. Yeah, I actually got a chance to visit that stadium, and it's sad because that stadium is a lot like Niagara Falls, in my opinion. I mean, I didn't go through the whole city, but just we did, what was it, like a kind of a ride share thing. So we caught a bus to the stadium. The stadium, it's pretty. It's very artsy. It's not very sports oriented, if that makes sense. It's like you have to really dig to find any sports artifacts in the stadium. It's almost like an art exhibit. It's weird to me. I was like, I like playing sports. I'm like, where are the football helmets? Like, where's the museum of, any playoffs that you had, like your players like Dan Marino and the jerseys, and they have a really nice sports store, but they do not have any artifacts that really tell the story of the Miami Dolphins. So it's very interesting. And it says those taxes could help out those schools locally. It could, but that's the thing. They're not really concerned about the outside area. They're only concerned about the area that benefits them, right? And it's weird because they're like, "Oh yeah, people will come. People will pay this to come see us and do all these things." And it's like, people really need to catch on to how they're being used and how they're not getting the benefit, right? It's about really that even trade when it comes to these sports teams, and I really don't think people consider how how the taxpayers are taken advantage of. Yeah, I'll just say it in short with that. Yeah, the American people are definitely being taken advantage of when it comes to the athletic teams again. And now that this whole gambling racketeering thing is happening, it's really going to be interesting to see how all of this pans out. But now I want to transition because now I want to go into some food warnings that we need. I don't know if you guys have heard about nanotech in food. And, the videos I'm going to play for you, they are a couple years old. These are from 2022, 2023, where they were talking about this, but they weren't talking about it on a large scale. And the reason why I'm bringing it up now is because, we've got people that are going to be fighting for food, maybe going into the next week. And we really need to consider other food options, growing our own food, bartering with others, being very particular about where we get our food because they are putting the nanotech in our food, and it's very scary. Let's check this out.
Is what's known as an ingredients label. It's legally required to be printed on the packaging of food items. And if you happen to be one of those people who stands in the aisles at the supermarket looking for the names of ingredients that you can't pronounce and therefore you don't want to ingest into your body, well, then you've most likely come across the names of several ingredients that, perhaps unbeknownst to you, are actually made using nanotechnology. Specifically, they're made through a process which converts things like silver, copper, gold, aluminum, silicon, carbon, as well as different metal oxides into tiny, tiny, tiny atom-sized particles that are quite literally 1/10000000th of a meter in size. If you want a visual for how small that is, up on screen is a graph from the National Center for Electron Microscopy, and it shows you how a strand of DNA, which is about 2 nanometers in diameter, is about 1,000 times smaller than a bacteria organism and about 1,000,000 times smaller than a raindrop. So that is to say, these nanoparticles in our food are very, very small. Now, some of the more common nano-sized ingredients that you might be able to find in your cupboard right now, if you were to look, include things like titanium dioxide, which is used to increase the whiteness of things like milk, yogurt, and sugar. You might find silicon oxide, which is added as an anti-caking agent. You might find iron and zinc dioxides, which are added to increase supposed nutritional value. You might find different silver derivatives, which are added for sterilizing properties. And you might find a host of other ingredients like calcium carbonate, tricalcium phosphates, and so on and so forth. The list is rather long. However, before we move on, in order to really set the stage for you properly here, let me back up for a quick moment and actually explain to you what this is all about. Starting back in the 1990s, so about 30 full years ago, nanotechnology became widely used in the production of food products. That's because scientists discovered that by adding these tiny little components, they were able to make our food more colorful, they were able to make it brighter, creamier, crunchier, and they were even able to keep it fresher for longer. And besides just adding it to the food itself, well, some manufacturers have also added these nanoparticles to the food packaging. As just one example, up on screen you can see a milk carton which utilizes nanotechnology to act essentially as an indicator of the freshness of the milk that's inside. And as you can see, the color of the box actually changes to coincide with the change of the food that's inside. Furthermore, different researchers also found that adding these nano-sized additives to some medicines made them more effective. However, according to more and more consumer protection groups as well as different health experts, well, there appears to be a catch, which is that while these nanoparticles can provide a myriad of benefits, they might come at a price, and that price is our health. Because you see, these particles are so small, so tiny, that studies like this one here that you can see up on screen for yourself show that they can actually breach the blood-brain barrier. And the ironic part is that the researchers in that study, they were actually looking into this function of nanoparticles in order to treat neurological diseases. Because in order to treat them, they actually need medication that can breach the blood-brain barrier. But when it comes to food, for instance, when it comes to your breakfast cereal, that is not a feature of the ingredients that anyone is looking for. Furthermore, besides breaching the blood-brain barrier, other studies have shown that these particles are also able to circulate throughout the body, to get into and get absorbed by the bloodstream and different organs. They have the potential to penetrate our cell walls, and then they might also, at least potentially, create inflammation and disease. Here's, for instance, what Dr. George Pirgiotakis, who is a researcher with the Harvard School for Public Health, here's what he said regarding this matter, quote, "They may pass through the lining of the gut and enter the bloodstream, which may trigger an inflammatory or immune response. They may also build up in various parts of the body, including the lungs, the heart, and reproductive organs." Likewise, Dr. Rolf Halden, who is the director of the Center for Environmental Health Engineering over at Arizona State University, he was quoted in a recent article as saying this, quote, "We really don't know what the impact of these particles is. Human exposure is increasing, and we lack the tools to even measure what is arriving in our bodies, where it is deposited, and what it does there." Then he actually went on to compare this unknown impact of nanoparticles to asbestos. Quote, "Asbestos itself is relatively benign. It's an inorganic material. What makes it toxic and makes it kill 90,000 people a year is that it has particles that lodges in human tissue." Furthermore, there was a study published in July of 2020 by researchers over at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. And in the study, they were specifically researching the effects of titanium dioxide, which is one of the most well-known additives. It's commonly added to things like gum, candy, drinks, milk, desserts, and so on. And what these researchers did was that they gave titanium dioxide to two different groups of mice. And in order to isolate the effects specifically to this nanoparticle, one group of mice was fed a low-fat diet, and the other group was fed a high-fat diet. And what wound up happening was that both groups experienced changes in their gut bacteria, including the inflammation of their colons, which can lead to abdominal pain and even diarrhea. And although both sets of mice experienced this inflammation, the obese mice that were fed the higher fat diet, they had more pronounced symptoms. Now, you might look at the study and you might say, hey, Roman, that's great, but if these nanoparticles have been used in food production since the 1990s, and they are found in over quite literally 2,000 different food items, then why are you citing studies on mice? What about studies on humans? Well, that's the million-dollar question. Because looking at the situation, you would assume that surely the U.S. government wouldn't haphazardly allow food companies to introduce these new ingredients into the products that we buy on our store shelves without undergoing rigorous testing and authorization. And if you think that, well, you would only be half right. Because as it turns out, the FDA, which is of course the agency that's tasked with overseeing these additives, they are themselves trying their best to keep up with this new and evolving technology, and they're essentially playing a balancing game between the potential benefits while mitigating the risks that these nanoparticles actually cause. And as it currently stands, the FDA recognizes nanoparticles within food with a designation called GRAS, which stands for Generally Recognized as Safe. As long as the manufacturer is already using the same ingredient in its larger form, well, they can use it in its nanoparticle form. Meaning that if, let's say, a cereal manufacturer is, for instance, using titanium dioxide as an additive in their cereal, well, then they can also use titanium dioxide nanoparticles in their cereal as well, and the FDA will label that cereal as being GRAS. Here's specifically what a guidance document from the FDA said on this matter. And just for your reference, this document was released all the way back in 2007. Quote, "The FDA's Nanotechnology Task Force concluded that the agency's authorities are generally comprehensive for products subject to pre-market authorization requirements such as drugs, biological products, devices, and food and color additives, and that these authorities give the FDA the ability to obtain detailed scientific information needed to review the safety and, as appropriate, the effectiveness of the products. For products not subject to pre-market authorization requirements, such as dietary supplements, cosmetics, and food ingredients that are generally recognized as safe, otherwise known as GRAS, manufacturers are generally not required to submit data to the FDA prior to marketing, and the agency's oversight capacity is less comprehensive." Meaning, again, that the FDA's requirement for reviewing and confirming the safety and efficacy of nanotechnology ingredients only applies to a certain subset of food-related products. And so, if something is already recognized as being generally safe, then the nanoparticle derivative of that same substance is also generally assumed to be safe. Now, this story actually gets a lot deeper, which we'll get into after I show you this beautiful coin. This right here is an American Walking Liberty 1 ounce. These nanoparticles, well then, who will? And the answer appears to be the manufacturers themselves. Because further down in this document from the FDA, specifically on page 33, there's a subsection titled, quote, products not subject to pre-market authorization. And in that subsection, it says this, quote, however, manufacturers are still responsible for ensuring that the products they market are safe. For example, cosmetic manufacturers are required to ensure the safety of their products, but are not required to provide safety data to the FDA. In light of the evolving state of the science, the task force believes an appropriate course of action at this time would be for the agency to work with manufacturers of these products and assist them in identifying data to substantiate the safety of products containing nanoscale materials, including chronic toxicity and other long-term toxicity data as appropriate. And so you see, the FDA appears to recognize the potential dangers of these nanoparticles, but then they go on to suggest that it is still the manufacturer's own responsibility to ensure that their products are safe. And so what the FDA's plan appears to be, at least according to their own guidance documents, is to establish some sort of ad hoc relationships with the different product manufacturers in order to pull together the right data to demonstrate product safety, which appears to rely heavily on the good nature of these different companies to be responsible, which is actually evidenced further in another document that the FDA released back in 2018 called, quote, the FDA's approach to regulation of nanotechnology products. And in that document, there is a subsection which reads this, quote, where statutory authority does not provide for pre-market review, consultation is encouraged to reduce the risk of unintended harm to human or animal health. In these cases, FDA relies on publicly available or voluntarily submitted information, adverse event reporting, where applicable, and on post-market surveillance activities to provide oversight. Where nanotechnology applications are involved, the FDA encourages manufacturers to consult with the agency before taking their products to market. Such consultation can help the FDA to advise companies, review safety information, and design any necessary post-marketing safety oversight. Now again, I am generally the type of person that gives the benefit of the doubt to most people. However, it's hard not to make the comparison that this appears to be a case of having the fox guard the henhouse, when the FDA basically is relying on the good nature of profit-driven food companies to use this new technology, which fundamentally alters the state of food items with no long-term health studies to support its use. Furthermore, one of the main reasons that you likely don't know about these nanoparticle ingredients is because of the fact that the FDA's guidance explicitly states that companies do not have to place nanotechnology ingredients on the labels of their food products. Here's specifically what it says in this guidance document, again, that came from the FDA in 2007, quote, because the current science does not support a finding that classes of products with nanoscale materials necessarily present greater safety concerns than classes of products without nanoscale materials, the FDA Nanotechnology Task Force does not believe there is a basis for saying that, as a general matter, a product containing nanoscale materials must be labeled as such. Therefore, the task force is not recommending that the agency require such labeling at this time. Instead, the task force recommends that the agency take the following action: address on a case-by-case basis whether labeling must or may contain information on the use of nanoscale materials. That is, quite frankly, rather cool. The recommendation is that since the science doesn't suggest that these food products with nanotech present a greater safety risk, well, then they don't need a label, even though that same science has no long-term studies on the impacts of such nanotech. And so we as the consumers are, quite frankly, just left in the dark, which is, by the way, not even the first time that such a thing has happened in recent memory. For instance, it took the USDA quite literally over 6 full years in order to finally give in and force food companies to label their products if they are genetically modified. And that came quite literally after years of public outcry. However, at this moment, well, most people don't even know about this nanotech food technology, and so there is no real public outcry, at least not here in America. Regardless, if you head on over right now to the FDA's website, and then you go on over to the specific subsection on nanotechnology programs, you will find that after 2007, it took another 13 years for the task force to release another report, which came out in the year 2020. And in that report, there is a chart showing that the number of products using nanotechnology submitted to the FDA for approval has increased dramatically over the past 10 and 20 years. Now, of course, not all of that is food. It also includes things like cosmetics, medicines, as well as vaccines, which we'll get to in a moment. However, in regards to food, while the exact number is not exactly known, experts in this field estimate that somewhere between 1,900 and 2,500 food products are currently on the market using this nanotechnology. And this has created kind of an interesting juxtaposition between America and some other countries in the world. Because despite the fact that there is scant research on the long-term effects of ingesting nanoparticles, well, as we mentioned earlier, the FDA does not require any food items produced with nanoparticles to be labeled as such. And instead, the guidelines that they do have recommend oversight on a case-by-case basis. However, other nations are not as open-minded, you can say, as the FDA. In fact, many countries have taken steps to either limit or outright ban either all or some nanotechnology in their nation's food. For instance, in the year 2010, Canada moved to ban the use of all nanotechnology in their organic food production. Then in 2011, the European Union began requiring that all food to be labeled if it contains engineered nanomaterials. And then going even further, in 2015, the EU began to require additional testing to ensure proper health safety. Then in the year 2020, France, which is of course a member of the EU, they went a step further and they outright banned any foods containing titanium dioxide. In the summer of 2022, all of the EU will actually join France and no longer allow titanium dioxide. Their reasoning stems from a quote, potential concern over accumulation of titanium dioxide particles in the body and possible genotoxicity. Genotoxicity is the ability for a substance to damage DNA, which may lead to cancer. Meaning that if you want that sweet, sweet titanium dioxide, well, you'll have to come all the way here to the US to get it. And for your reference, titanium dioxide gives food a nice white color, and so you can find it in things like milk, coffee creamer, toothpaste, cakes, pastries, and so on. Now, again, I'm not saying that it's actually harmful, or I'm not saying that it's actually safe, but at this moment, it's not 100% known either way. However, what is known is that the FDA currently allows these nanoparticles to be included in our food items without requiring the actual manufacturing companies themselves to place them on the ingredients label. So take that for what you will. But the big question remains, what are the long-term effects of these nanoparticles? And given the fact that they have been shown to be capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier, shouldn't their effects be mapped out over a long-term scale before they're injected into people, or even more pertinently, into our food? Because although at this moment, the scientific consensus states that these nanoparticles are safe and they're nothing to worry about, well, I believe it's worth reminding you that at one time, not too long ago, lead was used in gasoline, asbestos was used as a building material, and 20,000 doctors said that Lucky Strike cigarettes were better than the alternatives. Now, I'm not directly comparing nanotech and food to things like lead and asbestos, but at the very least, I think that we as Americans have a right to know what's in our food, as well as what's in the shots that are mandatory for some of us to take. If you'd like to go deeper into any of the research that we discussed in today's episode, I'll throw all those links down into the description box below this video for you.
Yeah. And so that's why I wanted to play that video for you guys. I know it was a bit long and in depth, but the bigger question becomes, if it's not a big deal, why can't you just put on the label, right? Why can't you just tell me what I'm eating so that I can make an informed decision? See, that's the part that they're taking away. If the FDA is like, okay, well, you say it's safe, but they're not requiring the manufacturers to actually come up with documented evidence that it's safe. They're just relying on the manufacturer to say, hey, yeah, it's okay. Like I told you before, I was like, the FDA is trash. Sorry, they are. You're put in place to make sure that we as a public are safe. You are the Federal Food and Drug Administration. Like, it's like that's your job, to kind of police what is going on here when it comes to the humans. But you're more concerned about your dollar and the bottom line of manufacturing companies. You're not concerned about the health of people, because if you were, we'd be like Europe. Now see, that's the real test. I'm like, Europe is like, you're not putting that in our food. Not today, not ever. Now, if it's banned over there and it's not banned over here, what are we doing? Like, they literally have food police that go through their little convenience stores and will confiscate food items. I've seen it. They have like a whole police force that's all they do is run around grabbing up junk food that shouldn't be in their country. That says a lot. At least they care about the health of their people. I don't know about other things, but at least they care about what they put in their bodies. And those are bigger things that we need to be looking at. So I'm hopeful that the HHS secretary, I know it's a big elephant, and he's done a lot, with tallow fries. You can now get at most Steak and Shake environments, they use tallow oil for their fries as opposed to seed oils, right? So making small strides in healthy areas, really looking at what's in the vaccines so that parents and individuals can make better informed decisions about their health care. He's never said he wants to eliminate vaccines. He just wants to make sure that they are safe and that they're actually doing what they're supposed to do, which is help people, right? Because if they're not safe and they're not helping people, then why are they on the market? That's usually the bigger question that it comes down to. So I really want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Unfiltered Vision News. I hope for this Tell It All Tuesday, I was able to give you guys, just some food for thought, information, right, that you can use, especially, like I said, involving the RICO case and insurance body parts and stadium financing. And again, if any of you want any of the information that I discuss, with ChatGPT, and you guys want a copy of that, let me know. And I can send you the link via email at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. That's unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me here today. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.